Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And this is
Until the End of Crime. Cameron, you have family in Arkansas.
Allegedly.
Have you been to Arkansas?
Yes.
Have you stayed there for significant periods of time?
What is a significant period of time?
5 days or longer.
Yes.
Have you navigated around local Arkansan communities?
Yeah, one.
Is it small, large? You don't have to say the name.
It's kind of small. It's just shy of 13,000, or it was when I did spend time there.
Is it close to any Arkansas metroplexes?
I don't think it's that far from Fayetteville.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You know, I think with that being said, in the past on this podcast, we've talked about small towns, specifically small Texas towns.
Yes, I remember it fondly.
So now I want you to think about what you know or what you surmise about small South Arkansan towns. Small South Arkansan towns in the 1950s.
What?
What do you think they were like?
In the 1950s, that's 75 years ago.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Anytime something starts with a 19, I think of it in terms of how far away it was in 2000 versus 2025. Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're a quarter of a century into this millennium. We should probably give that up.
I can't. My brain doesn't process it.
You're going to have to.
Okay. So what do you think? What are your ideas? What inferences can you make based on what you know?
I mean, racist.
Okay. What might you think about the power dynamics and power structure? Other than race.
I don't think about it. What are you talking about? What type of power structure? In what? In the town?
Yeah.
The rich are rich and the poor work a lot.
Okay, that's good. And what about women?
Do they have rights now?
I think more than they had in the 1950s.
I love whenever I'm talking about women and I say they. Like it's an othering language.
I think that you are on the right track. And part of what we're going to be discussing today is the dynamics of 1950s South Arkansas. And, you know, if we kind of reverse a little bit and we talk about what we know about Arkansas, I lived there for 4 years and I went to Southern Arkansas University, and Magnolia, Arkansas is a city that's about the same size you said that your family's city was. 13,000 was the population when I lived there. And that was from 2010 to 2014. And gayness was definitely thought of as being weird and sinful and with a negative perspective.
It took me a little bit. It sounded like you were saying gayness, and I was like, is that a town?
Oh, no, being queer, being a part of the LGBTQ community. And even then, not that long ago, a decade ago, the idea around women in their position in society was also apparent then that they are to become a wife. And that was still kind of the social stratification.
Are you saying that that was just in Arkansas in the 1950s?
No. I'm talking about near modern day Arkansas and how that was still the expectation.
Oh, yeah.
Which isn't to say that's not the case in a lot of places.
Right.
But just to give listeners perspective in case they don't have it.
2014 Arkansas is virtually 1950 Arkansas.
That's not what I'm trying to intimate. I'm just saying that we can still see the stranglehold that some of those 1950s customs had on a near modern day Arkansas. All right, let's dive in. It's a mild spring evening in Camden, Arkansas.
Which is where?
So Camden, Arkansas is located...
Southern?
Yes.
Okay.
So Camden, Arkansas is in southwest Arkansas. Well, maybe south central, but still southwest.
Great.
And roughly 50 miles from where I went to college.
Was that north?
In Magnolia, Arkansas?
West?
No, Magnolia is very southwest Arkansas.
So northeast from where you went to college?
Yes.
50 miles.
Yes.
Great.
Is that what I said?
You said it was 50 miles from.
Okay. So it's almost a triangle between Magnolia and El Dorado, Arkansas, and Camden, Arkansas.
El Dorado?
Uh-huh. Yeah, El Dorado.
It's not El Dorado?
Didn't say El Dorado. I don't remember people saying El Dorado.
All right.
Okay.
Take me to Arkansas. I feel like you already have.
Okay. It's a mild spring evening in Camden, Arkansas, March 2nd, 1957. The small southern town, nestled along the Wichita River, is quiet. The kind of quiet where every sound, a dog's bark, the rumble of a car, footsteps on gravel, carries into the air. For most, it's just another Saturday night, but for one woman, it will mark the end of her story and the beginning of a mystery that has endured for decades. Inside her modest home on Clifton Street, Maud Crawford sits in her living room. A lamp casts a warm glow as she strings green beans into a pan resting on her lap. Her Dalmatian, Dal, known for his fierce protectiveness, lies nearby, calm and alert.
Do you think I should have named one of my dogs Min and one Schnau?
Menschnau?
They're Chihuahuas.
Legal files sit stacked on the dining room table, remnants of a career built on precision and integrity. By all appearances, it's a typical evening.
A career in what? I mean, I understand that she works in probably a law office, but what is her 1950s woman in Arkansas career?
She's an attorney.
Okay.
Which I will talk about more later.
No wonder they killed her.
Okay,
the glass ceiling.
Don't jump the shark. We've got to get to it first. Oh my God.
You set the stage. You asked the questions.
Oh my God. Jesus Lord. Okay, anyway.
But it's a mystery. How can you know that it was
so mysterious when you blurt out the end?
You said it's a mystery.
It is a mystery.
But how is that blurting at the end? We can bleep it.
Whatever. Okay, we'll figure it out later. Let's see how it unfurls. Around 9:30 p.m., a car pulls into the driveway. Dal stirs but does not bark, a curious detail given his reputation. Maud sets the pan of beans on the table and walks toward the back door. The light remains on, her purse and keys untouched, the legal files undisturbed. Then she vanishes. When Clyde returns home, her husband, that night, he finds the home just as Maud left it, just as he had left Maud earlier in the evening. The green beans set abandoned, Dal is calm, and his calls go unanswered as he searches their home, the yard, and the neighborhood. By morning, Clyde has decided that his wife Maud has officially disappeared. For 2 weeks, Camden police search for clues. Neighbors recall little, though one does report seeing a black car in the driveway that evening. A black Cadillac with distinctive chrome, unusual for a town like Camden. Yet, there are no signs of a struggle, no ransom note, no trace of Maud. It's as though she vanished into thin air. But Maud wasn't just a member of the Camden community. She was a trailblazer. Born in 1891, in Warren, Arkansas, Maud faced hardship early, losing her mother at 9 years old.
Isn't it just assumed if you're born in 1891 you faced hardship?
Well, that's what you would think.
That's what I do think.
I mean, I think that's what most people would assume. Life was not easy breezy in the 1890s.
For some reason, it gives like Little House on the Prairie vibes to me.
Determined to build a life of purpose, she pursued a career in law at a time when women were rarely seen in courtrooms. Maud actually became one of the few Arkansans to, quote, read for the law, learning through apprenticeships rather than formal education, and passed the Arkansas bar exam in 1927 with, wait for it, the highest score in the state.
Yeah, because she was self-taught. She was doing it out of interest.
Right.
She didn't go to law school. She read about law because it was interesting to her. So she read about all of the laws, probably, and all of the cases that led to those laws. She probably was very well read on the subject and retained a lot because of her interest rather than to get a grade or to get a diploma.
Intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation.
Yeah, but I think even if you're intrinsically motivated to become a lawyer, that doesn't mean that you have that same intrinsic motivation to learn the things that you...
I don't know if you can be intrinsically motivated if you don't have interest.
I mean, how many job options were there in 1890? Like 4?
Either way, Maud became a leading title and abstract lawyer during the South Arkansas oil boom, and she earned an excellent reputation for her meticulous work and integrity. She was Camden's first female city council member, a co-founder of the Arkansas Girl State program, and an active leader in civic organizations. In 1954, she was named Woman of the Year by the Pilot Club. Maud was a symbol of resilience and progress, breaking barriers and commanding respect in a world that often doubted hers and other women's abilities.
Did she have siblings?
I don't know. Maud's brilliance and unwavering commitment to justice made her a pillar of the Camden community, but ultimately, it may also have been what made her a target. What happened to Maud Crawford that night? Her disappearance sparked decades of speculation about conspiracy, corruption, and cover-ups. And at its center stands a powerful man, a fortune worth millions, and questions that have yet to be answered. We're going to go to the investigation and its early challenges. So,
no evidence other than green beans.
There's some potential evidence.
I do have a theory about what happened that night.
Okay.
I've
just done the intro and background on Maud Crawford.
I know, but I already did the spoiler, and then you just gave
your
the
autistic
same
pattern recognition.
Wow. Yeah, shots fired.
It's your superpower.
I haven't been formally diagnosed. The only one who's ever diagnosed me was you.
Maybe I did it informally and jokingly.
You informally gave me an assessment, and I scored even higher than you expected me to. And you did expect me to get a good score.
I did. But I did not diagnose you with autism. I want to make that clear.
That's what I'm saying, is the only one who's ever diagnosed me is somebody who is not actually diagnosing me. That's
Correct.
what I meant.
Okay, good.
Not somebody who is qualified to do so.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my theory. Somebody with the audacity thought that she had the audacity, and so they wanted to do something about it. They wanted to take that audacity. That's my theory.
Well, we're going to see just how audacious these people are. So,
do you want to know all of the songs that drop into my head as we record, or do we not have the time?
No.
Good gracious ass-bodacious.
You're going to have so much to cut.
Cut? That's staying in.
When Clyde Crawford returned home on March 2nd, 1957, he found a scene that defied logic. The house was still. The television was on. The pan of green beans Maud had been stringing set, again, untouched. And Dal rested calmly, but Maud herself was gone. Again, Clyde searched the house, surrounding property, calling for her in vain. And by morning, her absence had transformed a troubling mystery to an official missing persons case. Camden police began their inquiry by canvassing the neighborhood, questioning residents about the evening of Maud's disappearance. A nurse who lived across the street recalled seeing a large black car parked in Maud's driveway between 9:30 and 10 p.m. She described it as a Cadillac with distinctive chrome, a flashy, uncommon vehicle in a modest town like Camden. Its presence was noted, but it wasn't pursued as the critical lead it should have been. Despite the lack of signs of struggle, certain details did stand out. Maud's protective Dalmatian, known for his aggression towards strangers, showed no sign of agitation at all that night.
How long had it been between when Clyde left and when he came back home?
So I think he left sometime in the early-ish evening, like 6:30 p.m. And he had a routine of going and watching a movie at the Cineplex on his own, and then going to the liquor store. And then he would come home.
You said that the scene was the same as it was when he left, almost like when you said that to me after talking about the green beans were already on the stove when he left.
No, well,
Probably
not even
not
on the stove. The green beans, she had been stringing them like dried beans and taking out the parts and separating them. And she had been doing that activity when he left. So there are differing accounts. In some sources, it states that Maud had been watching their television inside while stringing these green beans. And then another source had said that she was sitting on her porch. But based on what I've read, it makes the most sense that she was, in fact, in her living room, stringing the beans in front of the television.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say she was definitely inside, because I think in the 1950s, it would be very uncommon to leave the TV on in a room that was not occupied.
Right.
Because of how expensive that could be.
Right.
But I also, if he was gone for an hour and a half, and I mean, the movie that he watched was probably about that amount of time. So that doesn't even account for the travel. And I don't even know if you said his entire routine that he had, but
Cineplex, liquor store, home.
Okay. So that's like 2 or 3 hours.
I would say close to that.
Okay. But if the green beans were basically in the same state that they were in when he left, she also probably left around the same time, unless this black vehicle that was in the driveway, like the person or people in it.
It wasn't the same time, right? And there wasn't like someone who had counted how many green beans had been shelled versus how many hadn't or been strung.
Right.
But it was still very much, this was her seat watching the television, stringing these green beans, and they were still in the same location when he arrived back.
Yeah, respectfully, you're not stringing green beans for 2 hours.
Have you done a lot of work with like beans and separating them, or peas and going through that process?
I would not say a lot. I would say a little.
Okay.
I've done some work with it, and I feel like your fingers will be very, very cramped and tired if you were doing it for 2 hours straight.
Right. It could have been leisurely. We also know that she did have legal documents that she was planning to look over.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, it sounds to me like somebody came upon the scene, whatever the circumstances of her disappearance, if somebody came to the door, snatched her with a green bean in her hand or whatever, and took her, or if they were somebody she welcomed in and they sat and then they got her to go with them, or whatever the case may be. There was a vehicle that was seen in her driveway. The scene was basically what it had looked like 2 or 3 hours before when her husband left. So it wouldn't surprise me if she left not long after her husband. They're pointing out that the dog was not agitated in any way, but if it had been an hour and a half, 2 hours since whatever happened, I wouldn't expect the dog to be agitated, because there was nothing in the home in that moment that was distressing the dog. It sounded like you were saying that that was part of the...
It was a part of their calculus.
Yeah. So does that help establish timeline? Like, this must have happened shortly after Claude left? Clyde?
Well, so
Clyde.
Clyde, and he would have been leaving sometime early mid-evening, like 6:30, and maybe 7. And then he leaves and he goes to watch his movie. He goes to the liquor store. Whether or not he actually does those things every...
It's the amount of time.
Right.
Right.
And he did not return home until roughly 11 to 11:30. The exact time is not certain. But
So that's
somewhere
like
between
5 hours.
Yeah, sometime between 11 and 11:30. The black Cadillac with the chrome accents was only noted between 9:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. And that's the only kind of out of place thing that the nurse neighbor reports. I saw the black Cadillac with the chrome finishing, and it was there from about 9:30 to 10 p.m.
Does she have a reason that the time stuck out to her?
Not that shared. And Dal's behavior is almost a focal point of the investigation. It sounds like he would have been distressed if he had been separated from Maud. That he was like fiercely protective of her, that he would attack strangers. And so part of what they assume, no one in the neighborhood heard Dal react to anything. None of his typical barking that would have been indicative of a stranger. And so they kind of use Dal's behavior, or the perception of his behavior, as this kind of stranger barometer. They think that whoever it is that came to see Maud could have been someone that she knew.
Right. Which is what I was kind of saying, is that's what it sounded like to me, is they were suggesting that the way that the dog was behaving meant that it was likely somebody that she knew. And I'm introducing something that they very well may have introduced on their own. But the amount of time that may have passed between her leaving and whatever those circumstances ultimately were, which it sounds like we don't know. But whatever that looked like there may have been enough time that has passed that Dal doesn't know to be concerned because, sometimes I accidentally kick my dog and she doesn't remember it 20 seconds later. So I don't think if somebody snatched me from my front door and I was gone for 2 hours, they would act distressed because I was gone, but eventually they settled down. So that's kind of my point, is that it may have happened with enough time for Dal to have settled down after whatever happened, whether it was a stranger or someone that Dal was familiar with.
As days turned into weeks, the public grew restless. Maud wasn't just another missing person. Again, she was a prominent attorney, civic leader, and pillar of the community. Her disappearance struck a nerve in a community accustomed to her reliability and strength. Yet, the investigation faltered almost immediately. 2 weeks after Maud's disappearance, Camden police declared the case a dead end. Officially, they had no suspects, no evidence, and no motive. Unofficially, whispers began to circulate about obstruction and interference. Requests for federal assistance, including FBI involvement, were discouraged by influential figures in the community. Senator John McClellan, who had once worked with Maud, declined to escalate the case despite mounting pressure from her family and supporters. Over time, the mishandling of Maud's case became painfully clear. Police records related to the investigation disappeared under mysterious circumstances, with some reportedly destroyed in a fire and others discarded by successors. Perhaps what was most damning was the suppression of a report from state police detective Otis A. Henley. Henley had compiled evidence implicating a prominent local figure and outlined a possible motive for Maud's disappearance. Before he could act on his findings, Henley was abruptly removed from the case. When he returned to retrieve his files, they were gone. I also want to note that Police Chief Cole of the Camden Police Department at one point noted that the case file they had for Maud's case, if the papers were stacked up, would have been the height of a piano, but that they had all burned in this mysterious fire that destroyed all the records of her case.
When was the fire?
I'm not sure about what year it was. The disappearance of evidence and the reluctance to pursue leads painted a troubling picture of systemic failures. A $1,000 reward, a modest sum for the time, because roughly translated it would be about $10,000 now, wasn't offered until 6 months after her disappearance. It also did little to encourage anybody with information to come forward.
Was she a prosecuting attorney or a defense attorney?
She did a lot of work in, remember the Southwest Arkansas oil boom and deeds, tracts of land, that kind of like real estate and royalty law. But that did put her in close contact with people with lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny that you just asked me that. Maud's work as an attorney had put her at the heart of some of Camden's most significant legal and financial matters. Again, Maud was known for the meticulous attention to detail and her commitment to protecting her clients' interests. Her disappearance prompted speculation about whether her work had made her a target, and as whispers of corruption began to swirl, suspicion grew around those who might have benefited from silencing her. In the absence of an active investigation, Camden turned inward. Fear and uncertainty gripped the town, and residents speculated about conspiracy and cover-ups, but only in hushed tones. The investigation into Maud Crawford's disappearance wasn't just flawed, but was deliberately stifled. The black Cadillac, the dog's behavior, the missing files were all pieces of a puzzle that law enforcement seemed unwilling to assemble. As the days turned to weeks following Maud Crawford's disappearance, Camden, Arkansas grew quieter, not with resolution, but with fear. Camden was once a bustling river port and later an industrial hub, and had cultivated a reputation for resilience and progress. Beneath its polished facade, however, was a rigid hierarchy where wealth dictated the rules and dissent carried consequences. At the apex of this social order stood a man named Mike Berg. Mike Berg was Camden's wealthiest man and a member of the Arkansas State Police Commission. Berg's influence extended far beyond his considerable fortune, touching nearly every aspect of Camden life, including business, politics, and law enforcement. This was a town where deference to power wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. Berg's reputation as a man who could reward loyalty and punish opposition created a really pervasive atmosphere of intimidation. Years later, many residents would admit that they had been too afraid to speak up about what they knew or suspected regarding Maud's disappearance. A frequent refrain was, "I've never told anyone this, but." Journalist Beth Brickell's interviews from decades later after the initial incident really kind of highlighted and cemented this mentality. And while others refused to speak at all, their silence, a testament to just how strong Berg's influence was.
So what you're saying is this mystery is not mysterious at all.
I would say it's not mysterious to Beth Brickell, who we're going to talk more about in just a little bit. Local institutions, including the media and law enforcement, played a role in perpetuating an action. Camden's police force abandoned Maud's case quickly, again citing that lack of leads despite the black Cadillac. Then requests for federal assistance, including appeals to Senator John McClellan, went ignored, and key records lost in a fire, discarded, or mysteriously disappeared. It's also noted that Camden's newspapers avoided delving into any of the implications of Maud's disappearance, and their coverage remained largely surface level, steering clear of any kind of uncomfortable investigation that would have led to any kind of upset with Berg.
I'm gonna pull back the curtain for just a second. Hayden gave me a trigger warning before we started recording today that we were going to be talking about small towns because I maybe have had some adverse reactions in the past when we're discussing small towns.
At the very least, strong opinions.
Oh, that doesn't sound familiar. I've never had a strong opinion in my life. Hayden mentioned that we were going to be talking about small towns so as to not send me over the edge. And I'm listening to him, and I know that the reason that this case is quote unquote mysterious is because this is a small town, because people with money have the ability to influence things in a way that does not serve justice, does not serve victims. And I just am wondering why I'm supposed to find small towns redeeming.
Well, and you know, what's wild is in the course of me doing my research for this case, I did reach out to some connections. And what I've learned is that people in Camden, Arkansas still aren't comfortable discussing this case. I mean, like you said, it happened 75 years ago, and there's still a kind of hushed silence around the case of Maud Crawford. And not just that, they don't even necessarily want to speak, even under the condition of anonymity. And so, from my understanding, from what I've been able to read online, what I've been able to gather, what Beth Brickell, the author who has done the most...
Insert the Arthur theme song.
The author who has done the most work.
This dramatic reading. Now we've transitioned.
And employed this really tactful and pointed and integrity-filled journalistic endeavor has found that people from 1986, people from the early 2000s, people from the mid-2010s still do not want to talk about this case. They do not want to talk about Maud Crawford, and they do not want it brought up in their community. Still.
So everybody knows what happened. Do they know why? They don't talk about it.
Well,
I guess
they do
we'll
talk
never
about
know.
it. No, there's the motive. You're going to be like, oh shit, no wonder.
Okay, you and I are about to pull up to Arkansas, and we're going to sit down for tea time.
I'm not going there. I mean, I've been there, but I'm not going to go there and talk about Maud Crawford.
No, somebody's going to bring it up.
Who?
I don't know. Somebody who's listened to this podcast.
You know, I still have a few friends that live in Maud.
I mean in Maud? Whoa.
Whoa! What's crazy is I'm pretty sure there is a Maud, Arkansas.
So we're going to go to...
There's certainly a Maud, Texas.
We're going to go to Lady Camden, Arkansas. No, I don't think that we're going to be welcomed after Thursday.
I'm pretty sure that my mother's deceased brother was on the police force in Camden, but he's dead, so there's definitely no asking him any questions. Continuing the discussion of our famed journalist Brickell, while she has been able to revive interest in the case, there were pieces of resistance that stood in her way besides people just not wanting to talk. Her research, her findings implicated that prominent figures might have kept further police involvement from occurring, as well as highlighting systemic failures. And these were met with discomfort and frustration. Also, attempts to sell her books at local events were blocked, a stark reminder of the town's lingering unease.
She's researched and written books. She knows that the town is not comfortable discussing this. So I don't think you sell them at local events. You got to branch out a little bit and kind of try to work your way in.
Part of my research came from an event she did at the Fayetteville Public Library, where she answered questions about her work. The reluctance to confront Maud's case...
Has she disappeared?
No, she has not.
Do we have eyes on her?
I mean, not at this very moment in time, but I believe she's still doing work.
Are you endangering us?
I mean, quite possibly, if I ever want to return back to the Arklatex.
Is this episode going to be like blocked from being published?
Can't be published in Camden, Arkansas. Oh, Lord. Camden's economy relied heavily on figures such as Mike Berg, whose businesses provided jobs and stability. Challenging him or acknowledging his potential involvement in Maud's disappearance meant risking livelihoods and social standings. With that being said, there have at times been glimmers of resistance. During Brickell's investigation, years after the fact, became a rallying point for those who believed Maud's story deserved to be told. Her work challenged Camden's silence and forced the town to reckon with its complicity and the power structures that suppressed justice. Maud Crawford's disappearance on the evening of March 2nd, 1957, did more than rob Camden, Arkansas, of a beloved figure. It pulled back the curtain of the intricate web of power and privilege that defined the town. Maud Crawford's work as an attorney did place her in direct conflict with Mike Berg and his system. You see, Maud Crawford served as legal counsel to Rose Berg, Mike's aunt. Maud had drafted wills ensuring that Rose's $30 million estate, equivalent to over $300 million in today's money, would pass only to her nieces. These arrangements left Mike with only a modest share of the inheritance. By the mid-1950s, Mike reportedly began siphoning funds from Rose's estate and altering property deeds to redirect assets into his control. Maud, known for her meticulous record keeping and unwavering integrity, uncovered these fraudulent activities and took steps to protect Rose's rightful heirs. Ultimately, it's believed that this is what set Maud on a collision course with Mike Berg.
Why did Rose not want Mike to get any money or property?
I don't know. In some sources, they refer to Rose Berg as having married Mike's uncle. So maybe there was some kind of familial issue with wanting to keep the estate with what they consider to only actually be Berg family. I'm not positive.
No, because Mike is a Berg.
Correct. But Rose's nieces might not have been.
Right. So then it wouldn't have been to keep it in the Berg family.
Well, maybe that's what Mike thought it should be. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Look, respectfully, I don't give a fuck about Mike or what he thought because he's clearly behind this, in my opinion. So, did Mike have siblings?
Give me just a moment.
Should I stop asking if anybody in this case has siblings?
I don't know the answer to that no matter when you ask it. So, yeah.
Forever, I will just never ask about siblings again.
Another troubling detail would later emerge. You see, in the days following Maud's disappearance, workers on a property owned by Mike Berg reported being instructed to fill in a well late at night, a task described as urgent and highly unusual. Another witness claims to have seen bloodstains in the back seat of a Cadillac parked in a Berg-owned garage. The car was swiftly removed and never seen again. These revelations, while circumstantial, painted a disturbing picture of potential foul play. At this point, we have circumstantial evidence bits. What is believed to be the same black Cadillac with chrome finishes that was at Maud's home was very similar, if not the same car that was seen at the Berg-owned property.
Believed to be? Oh my God.
With blood stains on the seats.
You said that they believed that it was a match, possibly, to the one that had been in her driveway, even though it was the same one.
They also
allegedly
had that unusual request of Mike Berg telling his employees that in the middle of the night, they had to fill.
No, I know, because he had her killed or did it himself. This is insane that nobody is willing to talk about this when it's so clear what happened. And he got away with it, and he's probably dead, and he got away with murder. Who knows how many murders he got away with, allegedly.
And how many millions he inherited or took that did not belong to him and would not belong to him. Do you remember when I mentioned Otis Henley, the state police detective earlier in the case, who was without reason removed from the case in its early days?
Oh, no, but it sounds like he probably also had a lot of integrity professionally, so he probably wasn't the right fit for this case.
Well, interestingly, it sounds like you're onto something because his initial report, which was highly detailed.
Yeah, I think I'm on to somebody's hit list right now.
Included motives and potential evidence. But this report that he filed disappeared entirely, as well as the evidence collected by the local police department.
In the fire?
An investigator recalled being told that there was, quote, too much money involved to pursue the matter further.
How much money would you sell your soul for?
Oh, I couldn't.
Your integrity.
My integrity?
What if you gave me a really specific dollar amount?
You're like, I have integrity?
$6,128,042.29.
You know, that's an interesting question.
Because that's what's happened here. A lot of people who don't even have money, which I know is the issue, is they don't have the money to fight this or the willingness to get murdered.
Or they don't have the security that money provides.
Or they just don't have the security because this guy's offing people when they mess with
Don't
him.
come between him and $30 million, baby.
I mean, when you divide it out, it's not even 30 mil. Well, it sounds like he probably got a lot of that 30 mil.
That is what it sounds
and
like,
his cousins by marriage, possibly, did not get to split 30 mil.
For Maud's family and her advocates, a lot of these barriers to justice just felt absolutely insurmountable. They did not have the same level of wealth or influence, nor could they turn around and correct the fear that ultimately served as a fortress around the truth.
I have questions about why it's going to sound really anti-feminist, but it just doesn't seem very safe to be in a small town in southern Arkansas as a female attorney. Because I think that if the attorney that was hired by Rose to protect her estate was male, I don't think you and I would be talking about this case today.
Probably not.
I think that it's the fact that she was a woman who was challenging him and keeping him from robbing another woman who he felt owed him something. That is the reason that she would have disappeared at his hands, if that is what happened, which it certainly is, allegedly.
With all of that being said, there's one piece of the puzzle that we still have that we've already discussed. We've talked about the well on Mike Berg's property and where that's the supposed location of Maud Crawford's remains.
Is it still supposed?
Yes. So
they know where she is and nobody has gone to.
So you have reached the conundrum and frustration that Beth Brickell, our heroic investigative journalist, has also felt and wrote about.
Beth, endofcrimepod@gmail.com. Let's have coffee.
We'll come to Arkansas to see you. We love Arkansas. So Beth Brickell has written and spoken about how this well continues to go unexcavated. And she offers a few reasons why this well has never been dug up. One, we still have the local politics and resistance. Again, we know that that she was blocked from selling her book in the city of Camden. And what Beth has said explicitly is that Camden just wants to sweep Maud Crawford under the rug as though she never existed.
Which is bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Every single person who's complicit in that, I want them to be swept under the rug.
Additionally, local law enforcement refuses to do anything with the Maud Crawford case. Despite the fact that Mike Berg died in 1975, there has been no kind of movement forward in this case. Brickell has also suggested that the viewers, listeners, if you're just hearing us versus seeing us, I want you to know that Cameron is beyond frustrated. She has thrown herself against the wall. She has been left speechless, but I feel like that will change in just moments.
Why? Because they were a part of the cover-up, because they knew that she was murdered, by whom, where her body is, and they refused to do anything about it. Why, after all this time? He didn't even get 20 years out of old Rose's money.
Yeah.
And I don't even know when Rose died. I think once she did die, that was when he got the least amount of money. I think it sounds like it was serving him more in his interest for her to be alive long enough for him to
continue to thieve.
Well, to alter things in a way that would benefit him financially.
Right.
But why are we still covering for this man? It's because so many people were involved in it.
Too much quiet, too much complicity, and...
No, too much corruption.
Right.
I'm talking about the people in the police department who knew and didn't care.
Well, and there's no way a fire and a new police chief and mysterious circumstances lead to a file taller than a piano going missing of all of Maud Crawford's case files. Or at least I don't think so. That's not an accident. That's not happenstance.
No, it's intentional. I mean, I don't even think they had to have the fire and all the rigmarole for that to be, that file just disappeared.
Mm-hmm. They could have gone with one lie.
They misplaced it.
Yeah. Something.
It's under this stack.
You guys keep looking. I don't know where it is, but it's here somewhere probably.
I can't believe that 7 decades later, or just shy of 7 decades later, because she went missing in 57, you said? So we're fast approaching 70 years. People are still concerned about it. I need names. Let me give you a list of the names that I want. I'm going to make a few phone calls.
Okay.
And accusations.
I can give you a few phone numbers. I can give you a few Facebook profiles.
No. I don't want people you know. I want the people who I know were a part of this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I want
Who?
Who are the young people on the police force in the 50s?
I don't know.
And how many of them it's our family legacy to all be cops?
God, most of them have to be dead. What's the average life expectancy in the U.S.?
150.
Better yet, what's the average life expectancy in Arkansas?
That was shady.
I don't even know what doctors are still there.
Look, my grandparents are 80 something and they're in Arkansas.
The average life expectancy in the state of Arkansas is 73.8 years. Not only that, they rank 45th of 50 states in the District of Columbia for life expectancy.
Okay, but joking aside, I had other family that lived in Arkansas. My uncle has passed away, and they were very, very, very poor. And my aunt still lives there, but she wrote the family off. So I was probably single digits the last time I saw her before she wrote the family off because of the things that they wouldn't let her do with her friends when she was 16. Not that we hold on to things in my family. But the family that I had that lived in Arkansas, I don't even know how they ended up in Arkansas because, like I said, both of my biological grandparents were born in California. Throwback to how my grandmother is my aunt in Arkansas. But Arkansas is not one of the wealthiest states.
No.
In the Union.
I would reckon they're one of the poorest.
Right. So the life expectancy makes sense. We're going to eliminate that from the context of this because money is the reason that this has been a mystery, unsolved for 68 years. So
Not
the people
Scooby-Doo.
But Mike had money.
He did.
And was doing everything he could to get his little grubby paws on 30 million more. Mm-hmm. Well,
God, could you imagine getting 30 million today?
What was it at the time? 3 million?
It was 30 million and it was worth 300 million.
Oh, today money is 300 million?
Yes, but even just 30 million today.
Sure, I can imagine it. The life expectancy is lower when people don't have money in a country where we don't afford people the
access to the right of healthcare.
You have to be able to afford to get sick or to get old in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have money, you can't attain those things. But in this case, I think that we can remove the average life expectancy because these people got money from Mike. If you are willing to murder an attorney, allegedly, you are padding the pockets of others.
Mm-hmm.
So, sure, the average life expectancy is 73 point whatever you said. But the reason that it's up in the 70s is because of these people who have money. It's because there are people who do have money.
Well, Beth Brickell is under the impression that the only way to get this potential remains exhumed or to excavate the vault or the well is going to be state level intervention.
I thought you were going to say is to get our 76 listeners on board.
Brickell believes that the Arkansas State Police would need to conduct the excavation, and that's unlikely to happen through local authorities. She has written letters to officials and private families requesting the state police to come onto the property and excavate the remains.
You know what I know? Beth Brickell, not a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she were, and this would be such a power play, but she would buy the property and then be like, come on, boys. She would pay somebody in the middle of the day to excavate.
Well, and here's another complicated facet. Sure, Beth Brickell has done all of this research and has created really compelling works that make me believe that her theory is correct about the death of Maud Crawford. But the truth is that where we stand right now and where things are, there is no concrete evidence at this time.
Because they haven't excavated the fucking well.
I understand that. But what I'm telling you is if you're going to try to do it with modern day 2025 police force, and you have no evidence for this cold case dating back to 1957, how much luck are you going to have?
Get sonar out there.
But how are you going to get onto this private property that...
You buy it. I already said that. You buy it.
You can't just buy property, bitch. I don't know if you know this, but you can't force someone to sell you their property.
Who owns the property? Let me give them a call. I'm calling a lot of people after this for a millennial.
You're going to have a lot of work to do.
You know I'm not doing it. I'm like, can I text them?
Yeah, you're not doing a bit of it.
I'm going to plug it into my phone, and if it turns blue, then I'm going to be like, we're good to go.
As we close out today's case, I want to take just a moment to reflect on not just the sadness or the devastation of Maud Crawford's disappearance or her potential murder. I want to talk about Maud Crawford as a pioneer, the first female city council member in Camden, a trailblazing attorney who earned that designation through reading the law, having the highest bar exam score in Arkansas in 1927, and being a beacon of integrity and courage. Her disappearance, her potential death, her potential murder really robbed the community of Camden of a leader, of a strong female, an amazing attorney. Her story is now symbolic of resilience and the enduring pursuit of justice. Maud's case is a reminder that the fight for truth is never easy, and it can endure and continue and last for far longer than what anyone would anticipate the shelf life being. If this story resonates with you in a way that makes you feel compelled to reach out and demand potential answers, it is possible to advocate for excavation by writing to Arkansas state representatives, the Attorney General, and the Arkansas Governor's Office to take action.
It would be really cool if we had people who did that. I mean, we're going to do it.
Expect the resources in the show notes for how you might reach out to these people.
I appreciate you bringing this case to me. I appreciate you sharing it with me and with our listeners. I do suspect there are more than 76 of you out there, but hey, sound off in the comments.
And prove it to us.
But I would be lying if I said that I didn't hate these cases that are unsolved, but they're fucking solved.
Well, and I have to shout out, this case comes to me from people that I know, from Facebook friends who, when I asked what cases should I cover on the podcast, several people reached out to me and said, hey, you should cover the case of Maud Crawford from Camden, Arkansas. And
are these people in Camden, Arkansas?
Some of them.
Well, they're saying to cover it, but they're also saying nobody wants to talk about it.
Well, I don't think my peers, my old college peers, probably have information about it.
Because
no one talks
the
about it.
The community doesn't talk about it because
Right.
the community says, hush, hush, bitch.
Well, and I admire and love that they entrusted me with covering this case. And I feel like I'm almost letting them down because of the information I can find. There's so little. If you're not Beth Brickell, you don't know shit about this case.
Well, you're not going to let them down if we have people who write to advocate for the excavation.
So you liked the case?
I told you I didn't like the case.
Okay.
I'm glad that you shared it, but much like how you don't like when nobody dies, I don't like when you bring me cases where somebody is clearly the perpetrator and they got away with murder.
Right.
Allegedly.
Someone got away with a crime in this instance.
Right, which is why I hate when you bring me a case where I have to say allegedly every time I open my mouth. I hate when you bring me a case where I am triple checking if I locked my door at night.
Yeah.
Because I can't help myself. I have to weigh in on things where I have to. I don't have to. I know that I don't have to, but
it feels pretty compulsory for you.
It's pretty compulsory for me to speculate, conjecture, create conspiracy theories. I do struggle with not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also hate when people get away with murder, which is what has happened in this case. Whatever happened to Clyde? He just comes home, finds green beans, his wife isn't there, and then that's the end of his story? Did they have children?
So Clyde and Maud Crawford did not have any children. They married each other on December 7th, 1925, and remained childless throughout their life together. After Maud's disappearance on March 2nd, 1957, Clyde Crawford's life took a tragic turn. Initially, he was treated as a suspect, which ultimately caused people to be afraid to associate with him or hire him for work. Clyde's financial situation deteriorated significantly. He had been struggling before Maud's disappearance, with tax records showing he only earned $500 in 1956. Maud had been the primary breadwinner in their household. Emotionally, Clyde was described as pathetic after Maud vanished. He had previously suffered a nervous breakdown after World War I, and Maud had taken care of him like a baby afterward.
Like a baby?
That's what it says here.
Okay, well, obviously, whoever wrote whatever that is...
I think Beth Brickell.
Well, Beth...
For years, Clyde held on to hope that Maud would return. He continued to look for her, seemingly unable to accept that she might be gone permanently. Towards the end of his life, Clyde finally came to terms with the likelihood that something did happen to Maud, as reported by someone close to him. And that's what happened to Clyde.
To write the words that he was perceived as being pathetic for suffering PTSD, because that's what that was. It wasn't a breakdown. He suffered from PTSD. And then he probably was re-traumatized because he spent a lot of time thinking that she left him, but that's what you would have to think. But to use those words, like the way that he was described is really the words and the phrasing all has negative connotations, when this man arguably suffered more than anybody in this case. Because absolutely. I don't think that they spent time torturing Maud. I don't think that that was the end game. I think it was a fast and swift termination of her life. Mm-hmm. And so it's disappointing to hear that the one person who was genuinely impacted by this for the longest period of time, with people thinking that he was responsible for his wife's death, for somebody who lost their lifestyle, somebody who, like, their dynamic very clearly was he was suffering from PTSD and she was a high-earning attorney. That's kind of disgusting to me, the way that he was described in that. That's just my opinion. That's just my 22 cents.
Mm-hmm. You got plenty of them.
I know that you put this case together with limited information. You shared that with me and with the listeners. You also put it together with a limited perspective being the primary information that you were able to find about it. So I do want to acknowledge that. So you did a really good job with what you had.
Thank you.
But in my opinion, Mike Berg was responsible for having Maud murdered and paid a lot of police, in my opinion, in a corrupt police force in Arkansas. And the FBI should have gotten involved, or at least internal affairs. A complete list of sources and any links can be found in the show notes.
And that's all we've got for this episode. If you enjoyed listening and you want to hear more of this, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, leave a review, download. I know that if you've made it this far, you definitely know that we have ads in our episodes now. Thank you for listening through them and supporting us. We love you. We love what you believe from us, what you think we give to you, and we're glad that you're still here.
Make sure that you recommend us to a friend. Word of mouth is one of the best ways to spread the word, help us reach new audience members, and make sure that you're following us at End of Crime Pod on Instagram.
And like us on Facebook at Until the End of Crime.
Make sure that you are following us on Instagram and Facebook. I would say TikTok, but I think that's dead by now. Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Until the next crime.